Hello everybody, my name's Lawrie Kirk and I'm from the APMG office in Canberra, Australia. And it's great to have this podcast on the APMG Midday Mentors series. And my topic for the next 10 minutes is about measuring relationships. We all have relationships with our clients and organisations that we deliver training for us or many other ways in our supply chain. But how many times have we thought about ways that we'd like to have ways that we could measure and baseline where that relationship is? Not just the type of the relationship, but what's the quality of the relationship? The good news is I'm going to share with you some tools that I've used for the last 15 years in my working career where we can actually easily measure the relationship that you have with an organisation or a client. This is all freely available, and I'm very much indebted to the work of Dr. James E. Gruenig from the Department of Communication in the University of Maryland. Dr. Gruenig has provided an excellent paper and guidance, and a paper that was actually originally written in 1999 with his colleague Dr. Linda Hon, and later on in 2002. Both these copies of these papers will be provided on the links that are associated with this podcast. The question of a relationships change as a time, and they change with environmental conditions. In this time of COVID-19, there's certainly been massive change that we know, if not daily, sometimes hourly, and that can put strain on all types of relationships, personal relationships, and even professional and business relationships. It's a time also that I also think that there's a time when, if your client is able to give some time, it's got increased availability. Sometimes, as I've experienced this week, clients are very happy to take a quick call just to see how it's going. I've also used this time. I have some clients booked up next week that have decided they'd like to baseline the relationship that they have with our organisation, APMG. And I'd just like to share with you how I'm using this tool provided by James E. Gruenig. In the paper called Qualitative Methods for Assessing Relationships Between Organisations and Publics, Dr. Gruenig's been very, very generous with his intellectual property. So if you are using this, please show due acknowledgement. He indicates that in relationships, in the literature at the moment, you'll see that there's clearly two types of relationships, an exchange relationship or a communal relationship. Now, in an exchange relationship, one party gives benefits to the other only because the other has provided benefits in the past and it's worked to a mutually acceptable value. But in a communal relationship, you'll find that both parties are willing to provide benefits to the other because they're concerned about the welfare of the other. And in some cases, they don't even believe they need to get anything in return. Now, what we should be looking is that there is a role for both types of relationship at a certain time. And I'm very pleased with the urgency and the turbulent times that we're seeing across both our country and globally. I'm seeing a dramatic rise in communal relationships. People are genuinely concerned about each other. It's very pleasing to get emails that you're signing from people to saying, before we get to business, how are things going? Is any of your family okay? Now, this isn't to say that your exchange relationship is bad. That is a normal business transaction relationship, and that's important for both our well-being and also our economy. But it's interesting for you, and I suggest you have a look at the definitions that can help you ascertain where are you at this point in time with your client. I'd like you to think of a client, think of someone who you're doing business with, and then I'd like in the background, when I pose these questions, substitute that client's name when I say the word organisation. So just focus for a little bit in the next 3 or 4 minutes. Gruenig then says not only when you divide the type of the relationship, but you can then go back into one step further. You can look at the quality of the relationship. And he gives you 4 areas or 4 factors that can determine the quality. The first one's control mutuality, and that's the degree to which the partners are satisfied with the amount of control they have over a relationship. There's always going to be some power imbalance between organisation and public, or organisations individuals, but think about it, if a person's happy with that degree of control, then they're likely to have, that's an interesting measure that you should have of that relationship. Trust. It's defined as the level of confidence that both parties have in each other and their willingness to open themselves up to the other party. Trust is complicated, but there are three underlying dimensions, and I want you to think of that client or that organisation as I read them out. One of them is integrity, the belief that an organisation is fair and just. Second is dependability, the belief that an organisation will do what it says it will do. And third is competence, the belief that an organisation has the ability to do what it says it will do. I want you to think of that organisation of integrity, dependability and competence. Where are they on a scale of 1 to 10 for each of those? The third aspect that helps us with the quality relationship is commitment. And that's the extent to which both parties believe and feel that the relationship is worth spending energy on to maintain and promote. What level of commitment would you expect from your partner organisation, or what level of commitment are you willing to do to continue this relationship? Satisfaction, and that's the extent to which both parties feel favourably about each other because they have positive expectations about that the relationship is being reinforced. What is your current satisfaction with that particular organisation that you have in mind? Now, in the paper that I'm going to give you the link to at the end of this podcast, you'll see that Groening's been very generous in giving you the type of questions that you can have and use. Survey, you will find that in any survey technique, people say one of the hardest things is to develop the questions. But the good news is you've got them sitting in this paper. So what do you suggest that when you start, we recommend start with 3 grand tour questions. And they are, would you begin by telling me what are the first things that come into your mind when you hear the name of this organisation? What else do you know about it? Do you feel that you have a relationship with this organisation? Why or why not? And please describe your relationship with this organisation. Now think about those 3 questions and substitute the client that you're thinking, your client's name, in when I use the word organisation. Straight away you're getting a picture, a broad picture of where you're heading with your client. We then should start to go into a little bit more, and in a semi-structured interview you should say, well look, I'd really like to look at 2 of those aspects. When I do this with my clients, I bring the questions forward about communal or exchange. Could I ask then, I say, well, if you were my client, I'd like to ask you questions about communal. I've defined what communal is earlier in the discussion. And the question about communal relationships says, do you feel that the organisation is concerned about the welfare even if it gets nothing in return? Why do you think so? Do you think it is concerned about the welfare of others? Can you provide an example? I then move on to the exchange relationship. Do you feel that the organisation gives or offers something to you because it expects something in return? Can you provide examples of where it has this has happened in the relationship before? And how did you feel about that? Was it equitable? Was it of equal value? That's an important question because people will purchase something from you if they believe it was of good value. But it's interesting to ascertain where that relationship is at this point in time. And you'll continue to hear me say at this point in time. One of the most important things you need to do and date any of this data is put at that point in time. I then move to the other 4. I'd like to delve into the quality of our relationship that we have with you. And then we have a look at those things about, remember, control mutuality. Now, remember that organisation that you had in your mind? I'd like you to substitute their name when you hear me say the word organisation. On control, to what extent do you believe that organisation is attentive to what we say? Can you provide any examples that show that organisation has taken these organisations into account in decisions and behaviours, or has it failed to take those interests? Let's look at trust. Would you describe anything that organisation has done to treat you fairly or justly, or unfairly and unjustly? Would you be able to describe things that organisation has done that indicate it can be relied on to keep its promises, or that it does not keep its promises? And that's a measure of dependability. How confident are you that it has the ability to accomplish what it says it will do? Can you give me examples and how you feel it? Now that's a measure of competence. We then move on with the 2 other characteristics, and it's commitment. Can you provide me any examples that suggest that organisation, remember the one you had in mind, wants to maintain a long-term commitment with you or does not want to maintain such a relationship? And finally, how satisfied are you with the relationship that that organisation has with you? Please explain whether you're satisfied or not. And I like leaving that satisfaction one right at the end, because you can see you're shaping and getting people to think about, not say, oh yeah, I'm satisfied or I'm not. They might reflect before doing that and say, well, you know, I'm happy with the control, the level of control, but I'm not as happy with the trust. I can see you giving commitment. Overall, you know, I am quite satisfied. Or it's happened at this point in time, I'm not satisfied. So once you get that information, it's relatively easy to quantify that. You can start to put a sliding scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being very satisfied, on each of those key questions. It's a semi-structured interview. Seriously, 15 or 20 minutes is all it takes. When I do with this client, we usually allow double, because often it will allow us to go into other examples that the client's interested in. There's a second publication that I will give you a link to, where this podcast is uploaded to, called Guidelines for Measuring Relationships in Public Relations. And this is a second paper and a small booklet that's written by Dr. Grunig and also Dr. Hon. And it goes into a little bit further detail if you'd like to have a look at how to present this data, and also some of the measures that you can do of ongoing administering the questionnaire, and how you might be able to looking some of the outcomes of relationship management. So today, I hope that's been of interest to you, and I know that in these times it's important that we use the time that we have self-isolation to contact our clients, to contact our organisations, not only just to see that they're okay and talk about business, but maybe express the opportunity, if they've got spare time and they'd like to do it, would they like to actually, on baselining where we are with you at this point in time. Don't expect all good answers, expect some honest answers, and these are ways that you're going to rebuild that relationship with the client. Because if we are going to rebuild from the COVID-19 turbulent times, there's one thing that's going to have to be, and that's going to be strong relationships. Thanks very much for listening to this podcast. The web links are certainly going to be where the podcast is uploaded. But if you'd like to contact me, my contact details are always there. Always happy to talk about defining relationships. Thank you.